What's going on? Welcome to Unlocking Your Inner Strength. In these episodes, I share with you insights and inspirations that have come to me on my path in life, and hopefully they can be a welcome hand of guidance as you move along your journey. I teach because I'm passionate about my message. I teach because it helps me to learn more deeply. Thanks for sharing a few minutes of your time with me for this week's episode, and without further ado, here is this week's show. What's up, everybody? It's Kyle with another episode of Unlocking Your Inner Strength. This is episode 261. Today, I'm going to try a new format, so to speak. Before I get into that, I find it interesting because sometimes people will ask me when I do my writing, when I do this and that. And I've mentioned it many times before, as far as my creative process, I'll have the ideas, right? So if you look here, this is Friday, I did this. I jot down some email ideas and my 4 article ideas for the next week. And that's it. There's no bullet points. There's nothing else. When I sit down to write, I set the timer, which is critical, and then I just go. And it's almost like this. It's like this deeper spot in my brain where I don't think about it. I know the title, and boom. And I never go back and read it. And that's why a lot of stuff might have typos. I never critique it. And I just hope it connects with people. So that's how I do a lot of my stuff in batch. And I've actually really come to enjoy the writing process. Today, it's the same thing with the podcast. I have the title and then I go. There's no bullet points. There's none of this or that. But today I figured I would switch it up, being that I just wrote all 5 emails for next week. Then I write 4 articles. So that's part of my Monday routine. I'm going to kind of go over and speak about the 4 articles I just wrote, because although there's 4 different topics, I think people might like this. And if they do, maybe I'll start making that one of, or if not, the weekly podcast. So let me get to it. So Mondays, I write about weight loss for my articles. So this, you'll be able to see the article. It's I've already posted it, but it's more evidence for the truth about weight loss. So many people want to play the calories in, calories out game, and I'm always railing against that because of my beliefs with fasting and the science and the experience and the real world results that I've seen with clients with fasting. But yet so many people can't, and I understand it because they're just bombarded with this weight loss and changing your body is this energy balance equation, which it is not. So I had a couple reality points, reality truth, right? So reality math is something I like to use. I've been using that since day one in the fitness industry. You know, this might say this, but I'm looking at what's actually going on, and that is, it might be true in theory, but it's not true in reality. So you always got to use that, and then if there is something that's true in theory and true in reality, now you're on to something. So the first bullet point I had is what causes one person, I said one, to overeat with stress eating. It's hormones. When you're stressed, certain hormones are out of control, and you want to use food as a drug, right? In case you're not really aware of the process that goes on, use food as a drug to lower that level of stress. Now, that's only temporary. It's going to come roaring back if you don't deal with the stress that's going on, right? So stress, you can go so many different routes with that, but if you are stressed, it means you're probably not getting adequate rest. If you are getting adequate rest, stress should be short-lived, but maybe you have a problem with stress management. But either way, it's the hormones that cause you to stress eat. Cortisol, your main alertness hormone, it gets vilified that it's this bad thing. It's not a bad thing. When it is chronic and out of control, it can become an issue. But cortisol can be used to build, fat, or it can be used to burn fat. How can one hormone be used to do 2 things? Depends on the level of stress and the environment with what you're doing. So let me give you an example with that. When cortisol is managed, meaning your stress levels are managed, growth hormone will continue to spike the longer you let cortisol rise. You know what has an inverse relationship with cortisol is insulin. Insulin goes up, cortisol should come down. Now, what happens when cortisol or stress level remains high and we stress eat? You're combining insulin and cortisol, and that's a disaster waiting to happen. High chronic levels of cortisol combined with high insulin is going to lead to insulin resistance and inflammation. You're going to get fat too doing that. So cortisol, and some people when they get stressed, they don't eat. Their appetite goes down, and what happens? They lose a lot of weight. So cortisol can be used to build, and that's a hormone, right, guys? Or to burn. I made a video last week about talking about what causes kids to grow. It's not the food they eat. It is growth hormone, another hormone. Causes them to grow, and the growth will trigger appetite. With adults, insulin causes us to grow, but not taller, wider. So there you go. And last night we had a party for Colty. Sugar Shane was asking me, he's already really lean, but if he wants to get to like 7% by 4th of July, what's the next thing he should do? He's doing his fasting, doing his workouts. I said, honestly, sleep. I talked about that a few weeks ago as well, but sleep affects every hormone in the body. If weight loss is your goal right now, you got to look at sleep first, and then we move on to fasting. And the next thing I told him that I would add in, as far as exercise, because he was asking about maybe doing doubles and all that, is walking, because walking lowers your stress hormones. It's all about the hormones. Until people grasp this concept, they will continue to struggle with weight loss and changing their body. There's a whole separate piece we could do on this with putting muscle on and hormones. But even that is about your hormones. Okay, next article I wrote, pull it up here, is, I believe, the mind map one. So I do a mind map piece, mindset one, each week. And I wanted to know, when I put this out with people, what is not clear in your life? Your brain thrives on clarity. It needs prediction and response to move forward. When you lack clarity, that's when all types of issues will come up. Like if you were going to say, go on a road trip, you don't know what the first turn you have to make is, you're going to get frustrated. You need to get clear on the things that you don't have clarity on, if they are important to you. Couple questions I would ask with this. If it's an individual thing, are you lacking a skill set or is it a mindset? Which one do you need to focus on? If it's a relationship thing, here's where things go south in any type of relationship. It's when we do not have what I call clarity conversations. Clarity conversations are when you have a set time and date to have a conversation with somebody, because the brain doesn't like being attacked. You can't just go in, well, we got to talk about this, blah, blah, blah. Set up the parameters ahead of time, right? You provide clarity. You don't want to bring perceived judgment to these clarity conversations. But if you don't have these, let's say it's you and your spouse, and let's say it's me and Devin. I'm thinking this thing. She's thinking this. We don't talk about it. And that divide will continue to grow. Even though we both might be on the same page, we develop these stories in our head, and that wedge just continues to grow. Where if you just talk about it, you get clarity, then you can move forward. So you got to always ask yourself, where do you lack clarity within your life? Next, how strong are your hands? This is more directed at men, but this is important for women too. As far back as I can remember, well, maybe not as far back as I can remember, but 15 years ago or so, going to the big box, James, a lot of good memories over there. It used to be called Maximum Fitness. I started doing farmers walks and grip training. And I'm sure that came from stuff I was studying and working with JB over at Rutgers, strength and conditioning. But nobody was doing this stuff back then. Farmers walks were unheard of. And it wasn't long before my buddies were joining in with me on them. And then we would also pick up for some of the grip training. heavy dumbbells. Let's see who can hold the dumbbells the longest without putting them down. With grip, if you ever look at an anatomy chart, okay, there's so many nerve endings in your hands and your feet. They're very, very tied in and tuned in with your nervous system. The more you can develop your hands and your hand strength, the more efficient your nervous system is. And there's even studies that show the stronger your grip strength, you have a reduced mortality rate, that you're going to live longer. So these, your paws, okay, and I am speaking more to the men on this. You want to have man hands. They should be calloused up. They should be strong. They should be strong. When we do grip over at the gym, like in the Saturday morning meathead workouts, I say, always tell the guys, remember, guys, your grip can save your life one day, whether that's holding somebody that's attacking you just long enough. Pretend that one of your children's hanging off the roof. Don't let go, because it's also mental toughness training. Now, what I've been doing, it's funny enough, because I was having a little tendonitis in one of my elbows. I said, man, I got to get the extensor bands again. You could just get a large rubber band and start working on my extensor grip when I'm sitting around, because that's harder to work with grip. So anyway, I went into the shed at the gym last week to get something, and I look in an old bucket, and I find the old bands that we had, okay, made by a company called Iron Mind, and the grip crushers. There's 2 of them in there. So I threw them in my truck. And what I've been doing the rest of the week since last week, when I'm driving around, I'm getting extra grip work, right? I'm squeezing, getting X amount of reps with the crusher, X amount of reps with the extensor. I try it with my arms in different positions, right? So I'm always experimenting. Like in this case, well, how do I get the tendonitis to clear up? Does it bother me more when I'm flexing my bicep or extending with my tricep? But all these things. But my point is, you can work your grip while you're driving around. Just get a pair of the old crushers. I'm sure you can find them pretty cheap. The extensors, the band will go around the fingers, and then you're opening your hand against the band. But that is something you could constantly. So if you put that, into your daily drive, let's say you're going to get 200 reps on each hand every time you're driving, you'll be shocked at how much stronger you get just by training your grip. Now combine that too with the nutrients that you're feeding your brain while you're driving, meaning what are you listening to? What are you learning when you're driving? And now you've turned what used to be an idle time into a grip training session and a session about getting smarter. So always leverage yourself, but get those hands strong. And last one I wrote about was about staying humble, really, about real expertise. There, in any field, there's a lack of true expertise, in my opinion, like real expertise. And expertise comes from time in the trenches, self-experimentation, knowledge base, okay, constant learning, constant slight edge, and reevaluating, right? You go back, and then you always retain the right to change your mind about the principle. And I've always said that with fitness. I can change my mind about something, let's say cardio. As new information, or I'm exposed to new information, I can change my mind on it. Don't be married to anything, right? This should go for anything in your life, really. But true expertise, even when you get older, so let's say you cross into your 40s, late 30s, 40s, doesn't mean you're going to be an expert. I knew plenty of teachers when I was a teacher. They would teach the same lesson, curriculum, year after year. So at the end of, let's say, a 30-year teaching career, how many years of experience do they actually have? Not 30. So that's akin to like sitting on the stationary bike going 20,000 miles and saying, well, I went enough distance to actually go around the world X amount of times. Much different than a person that actually goes on foot or bike across the world, using a boat when they need to, right? 2 different experiences. So the real expertise comes with years of experience, constant learning, and you can recognize a true expert by the way they teach. They should be able to teach their lessons to, let's say, a 3rd grader. If they can't, they don't really own the concept. Now, with fitness, where this is a problem, is people want to show you how smart they are, and or they want to make it about what they look like, which has nothing to do with expertise in most cases. And if you're so lucky when that, and I put this in the article, when Lady Wisdom comes as you start getting into midlife and whatnot, embrace it. Okay, embrace it. Most people will just push Lady Wisdom away. So wisdom to me is clarity plus truth. But embrace it. But most people don't want to embrace it. There's responsibility that comes with being expert level. But now here's the real kicker with that. Once you get your 10,000 hours and you get to a certain level, you got to remember you don't know anything. And I always remind myself that. Stay humble. And, that's the title of that article, Stay Humble, my friends. But stay humble. And I found myself a few times last week actually praying to make sure I stay humble. Because it was like I was getting these flattering, there was like 3 or 4 instances last week where somebody told me something flattering. And that could puff you up. But I said, let me stay humble. I said prayers to stay humble, remain humble. Because when you constantly empty your cup, right? So I got the old Simpsons cup. This thing is old, guys. This is probably from the late 80s. I like the color. Drinking my water from it this morning. Stay humble. Empty your cup constantly so you can put new stuff into it. And then continue to formulate your own philosophies and ideas about whatever your field is and about life. One of the great quotes of all time, in my opinion, is from Bruce Lee. Take what is useful and discard the rest. What is useful to you doesn't mean it has to be somebody else's truth. But real expertise, right? And here's the last thing I'll say before I sign off, because I guess doing this format's going to make it it's about the 16-minute mark, not too bad. If you put a bunch of experts on a panel or in the same room, they might disagree about something, but they're going to agree on 95% of the topic. Real experts respect each other even if they don't have the same exact view. And realize, and this will be a separate one, that was taught to me a while ago by Matt Fury. The progression you go through, and you can, I'll leave it and I'll let you formulate in your brain with what this actually means as far as being an expert. The path is, you go from warrior to teacher, and some progress to healer. Some never progress beyond the warrior stage. Most people think the warrior stage is the finale. The finale. That's the beginning. You go from warrior to teacher to healer. And this is more physical to mental. Teacher to healer is more mental to spiritual. I was at a bodybuilding show with my buddy Kai, who, I helped get ready. 16-year-old kid, reminds me a lot of what I was like at that age. And he's going through the warrior phase right now. He's competing. When I was competing, I was in the warrior phase. Right? And you have people that I saw some old friends there. When are you going to compete again? So that's probably past me at this point, man. That's not really where my focus is. But you could go back and do the warrior phase with the new being that you are. But just think about that, ruminate on that, think about it. That's all I got for you guys. If you like that, I will keep that format up for a couple weeks where I go through my 4 articles for the week and kind of verbalize what I was trying to say in those articles. People learn in different ways. Don't forget to hit the share button. That helps me a lot. Hit the like button. And don't forget to go to kylenewell.com. You can get on my Kyle Newell email list, which is different from the Newell Strength email list. Going to be having some really cool, same thing, daily emails coming out where I go a little bit deeper and a little bit more raw than I do with the gym stuff. So there you go, guys. Have a good one.
You wrote for today's episode. I appreciate you and your time, truly. I'm humbled and honored if you made it to the end of this episode. Don't forget, you can go to kylenewell.com for your free ebook written by yours truly on getting started with fasting, infused with 5 mind map principles never before seen. This is something I have not given out to anybody else. that'll help you see the light when it comes to your fasting journey and creating better health, both physically and internally. Remember, it's all about the mind, body, and spirit. Until next week, peace.